Hello friends, welcome to yet another session on essay perspectives. The topic for today is what is religion to one is superstition to another. Friends, as always I have a personal request. Third edition of my book Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude has unfortunately been pirated. Pirated copies are of very low paper and print quality. I urge all the aspirants to buy original. Original can be bought by clicking on this link or scanning this QR code. Thank you. Friends, as always, every essay has to be first conceptualized as being made of various components and subcomponents. So this essay also, first we would introduce that essay and then we would delve upon the essence of the topic. Then we would discuss the differences between religion and superstition and the similarities between religion and superstition. Then we would try to delve deeper as to when religion would turn superstitious, and then we would come up with some solutions as to how to rid religion of superstition, and then we would conclude. Friends, as soon as I saw this topic, I was reminded of the practice sati. As all of us are aware, sati is a practice which was regarded to be totally inhuman. So a widowed woman was forced to jump into the funeral pyre of her deceased husband. Correct. So this was prescribed to be one of the noblest act of any woman. Correct. So this was a religious practice. But however, that appeared to be very unscientific, right? So because a person has a right to life, merely because the life partner, a spouse or a husband has passed away, should not force a woman to end her life too. But worse still, that was applicable only to a woman whose husband had passed away, but not to a widower whose wife has passed away. So thus there was iniquity. So it was a superstition. Correct? So in India this was regarded to be religion. Everybody revered this practice. Whoever embraced the practice of sati, that woman was celebrated. So it was regarded to be a religion. But British came to India and with their different outlook, they considered it to be superstition. So even Indian social reformers who like Rajaram Mohan Rai, Dando Keshav Karve, there are many other social reformers also considered sati to be superstitious, and they campaigned for banning of sati, which led to the government prohibiting sati through this prohibition of sati act by Lord William Bentinck. Correct? So that aside, what I am just trying to tell you is, see here, this one practice of sati was being considered as religion by Indians, but the same thing was considered it was considered to be religion by majority of the Indians, but it was considered to be superstition by a few social reformers and also Britishers. Correct? So what was religion to majority of the Indians was superstition to a few social reformers or few individuals with liberal outlook. Friends, once we have introduced the topic, it is time for us to understand the essence of the topic, to delve deep upon the essence of the topic. So this essay statement consists of two keywords. One is religion and another one is superstition. So first let us take up the word religion. What is religion? Religion basically, it's a system of beliefs and practices centered around a supernatural, omnipotent, omnipresent power which we call God. It also lays down the practices that would enable a person to realize his ultimate aim. That ultimate aim can be deliverance, which we call moksha, or whatever. It varies from religion to religion. Basically, every religion lays down, prescribes principles about existence of a supernatural power. It also lays down the path that any individual needs to take in order to realize the ultimate aim of human existence, which is mostly to get out of this the cycle of life and birth or whatever. It varies from religion to religion. So these are the two major things about religion. Correct? So then what is superstition? Superstition is also set of beliefs and practices that cannot be proved. Superstition is basically a blind belief. It's a blind faith. It need not have to center around any supernatural power, or it need not have to center around God. Correct? So it is basically a belief. For example, so whenever a cat crosses your path while going, people say it brings misfortune, bad luck. So this is a superstition. It has nothing to do with God. So similarly, it is believed that a person, if a crow caws near the house, relatives would come. That is a superstition. That's a blind belief, which need not have to be true. It has nothing to do with God. Of course, some superstitious beliefs have something to do with God, but still, by and large, superstition beliefs is a set of beliefs which are unscientific, not proved, against which, which are believed to be true, even if there is a contrary evidence against it, or no evidence to support it, basically. Correct? So that is a superstitious belief. Correct? So now let us bring together these two, religion and superstition. So what is religion to one person may be superstition to another person. So if it essentially means, while one individual would look upon a particular belief system as being ordained by the divine power, the other person may just feel it to be something which is not so, and something he may call it superstitious. Correct? So thus it is about it is taking religion as the base, while one person perceives religion to be ordained by the God, to be prescribed by the God, another person would say it is not so, it is mere blind belief without any evidence to support the same. So thus this essay statement essentially talks about perception differences between superstition and religion. Correct? So now the obvious question that would arise is, why would a particular belief be considered religious by one person and considered to be superstition by another person? Correct? So that is the crux. So the first reason for that is difference in the awareness levels. A person who has scientific temper, who has acquired knowledge, who has gotten himself exposed to various schools of thought, philosophy, etc., would perhaps look upon a particular aspect or practice to be religious or superstitious, as the case may be. Suppose there is a practice which appears to be, there is a practice if a person who has read deeper, who has read the religious texts in detail, who has understood the meaning of the essence of all the religious texts, and such a person may call a particular practice to be a religious one, while another person who has gotten himself exposed to liberal thought, or a person who has not studied all these religious texts, would call it a superstition. So, reading and understanding the religious aspect of a particular practice may make a person to consider it to be religious, and not reading all those things, not understanding and analyzing those aspects may prod a person to dismiss that as a superstition. Alternately, a person who exposes himself to too much of scientific literature or liberal thoughts or rational thinking may consider a particular practice to be a superstition, while a person who is not exposed to this rational thinking, etc., may consider it to be a religious one. So thus the first reason for this perception difference is varying levels of awareness. Okay, that awareness may be awareness about the religion or awareness about the scientific temper, as the case may be. Next interesting thing is, this perception difference also arises because of jingoism about one religion. Of course, jingoism is a term which is used mostly in relation to patriotism or a country, but some for want of a better word, I could not think of anything, so I could use this word jingoism. So basically, jingoism is excessive love for something, so much so that you hate everything which is against to it. So if you are a jingoist, you would love your country so much so that you would hate all other countries. So something like that. So here also, jingoism of only one religion. So if you are a proponent of one particular religion, and if you firmly believe that there is only one religion which you follow to be true, in such a scenario, all the practices prescribed by all other religions would be mocked at, would be cried as superstitions by such persons. Correct? So merely because there is no one religion on this earth, there are multiple religions, and there is always tensions between the followers of these religions. So the proponents of one religion may just dismiss all the beliefs and practices of other religion to be superstition, not because they have subjected all the practices and beliefs of those religion to scientific scrutiny, but because they are not being prescribed by the religion that they follow. Clear? So thus, these are the two reasons why the particular practice which appears to be religious to one person may appear to be superstitious to another person. Once we have understood the reason for a particular practice to be perceived differently by two different persons, it is important for us also to try to understand if there are real differences between religion and superstition. So the first difference is God. What do I mean by that? See, every religion centers around God. You take any religion. So it is basically, some religions prescribe a particular person as God. Some religion prescribe a particular place as God. Some religions prescribe even nature as God. Some religions prescribe trees as God. Whatever. Finally, all the religious discourses, all the religious contemplations center around something called God. But it is not so with regard to superstitions. Of course, some superstitious beliefs can center around God. That is agreed. But that does not mean that all the superstitious beliefs center around God. So it is very interesting thing. Okay, many times superstitious beliefs or the proponents of superstitious beliefs may take shelter under the God, stating that if this belief is not followed, if this practice is not followed, then the such persons would attract the wrath of the God. They may do so, but at the core of a superstitious belief, it is never God. It is just a practice. To put it in another words, superstitious beliefs need not have to be dependent upon God. Simple. Need not have to center around the God. So there exist many superstitious beliefs which are independent of God. So the superstitious belief centering around God is only one subset of all the superstitious beliefs. Clear? So as I already told you, the concept of this good omen, bad omen. So if somebody come while you are going for work, a particular person comes, you consider it to be good omen. A particular person doesn't come, some other person comes, you consider it to be bad omen. Has this anything to do with has this anything to do with God? Absolutely no, right? So thus there is superstitious beliefs have nothing to do with God. Need not have to do anything to do with God. Then codification. Mostly religious beliefs and practices are codified in religious texts, whilst superstitious beliefs are not codified anywhere. It is just, it just originates in the community. Somebody just throws up this idea, somebody else picks it up. So then through two people throw this idea, four people pick it up. So like this it spreads across the society, community, sect, as the case may be. Then ultimate objective. So what is the ultimate objective of religion? The ultimate objective of any religion is mostly realization of God or reaching the God. So in Hinduism we call it is like escaping the cycle of birth and death, correct? But then what is the ultimate objective of superstitious beliefs? There is no such thing. Superstitious beliefs are end in themselves. You just follow them. You just believe them. You don't attempt to reach any God, or you don't try to realize anything out of it. Okay. So then, while religious beliefs are mostly psychological, that means you should do penance, you should think good of others, you should always do prayer, you should immerse yourself in the teachings of a particular religious leader or whatever. It is more of psychological. Well, superstitious is physical. You have to do this puja, you have to do this sacrifice, you have to do this particular act before that, or you have to do a particular act in a particular way. So it's mostly physical. Then morality. See, religion has moral angle to it. Religion in its purest form seeks to promote moral values, prescribes moral principles, while superstition is amoral. It has no moral angle to it. It doesn't prescribe anything that is moral or immoral. It is just a belief that is circulated. Of course, sometimes such beliefs can take ugly turn and may turn immoral at times. Okay, but superstition beliefs in themselves are amoral. Then trigger for origin. So trigger for origin matlab what led to the origin of religion? It is mostly selfless sense of taking community in the right path. So somebody who propounded all this religion wanted to teach good practices to the public, good practices to the people. So they prescribed certain tenets that became religion. Any religion for that matter. Religion aims to bring good to a person and bring good to a society. Both at the individual level and at the societal level, they seek to prescribe the procedures and principles that would enable a person to be good and to do good to others. But while superstitions, mostly the superstition beliefs, the trigger for origin is mostly selfishness. I am prescribing a particular practice because for conducting that practice, that person would need my help. So while he needs my help, he comes to me, then I can take money from him. I can take some benefit out of it. So that selfishness is the reason for most of the superstitious beliefs. Then after understanding the differences between religion and superstition, it is time for us to understand the similarities between religion and superstition. As I always say, we have to introduce an element of criticality into the essay by questioning the essay statement itself. That's what we are doing here. So that means both religion and superstition need not be different. It can be same also, right? How? The first one is unscientific. See, neither religion nor superstitious beliefs, most of the times they don't have any scientific evidence to prove their utility. it is a different story that once they are prescribed, we try to link it to some scientific evidence and consider it to be true. But by and large, mostly these things, both of them are devoid of any scientific evidence. Correct? So there is no scientific evidence to prove every religious tenet. Sometimes there are evidences to prove otherwise. Correct? So both are unscientific. Second, both seek to create something called master-servant relationship. So master-servant relationship is both religion and superstitious beliefs create a scenario where they treat a particular set of individuals to be superior, or they have the permit by the omnipotent God to teach something to mankind. All others have to become disciples. Hardly is there any religion on this earth which does not prescribe a religious leader. So every religion has a religious leader. So that means there is one leader. So who is master? All others are servants to him. Of course, same is the case with superstitious beliefs also, right? So every belief for that matter tries to do this. This priest is superior. So this person is, you have to go to him to get this done, etc., etc. So both try to create this master-servant relationship. Third one is societal enforcement. Both following religion or superstition, both are enforced by society only. Most of the individuals follow religion or superstition only because everyone else is doing it. Not doing it would lead to boycott from the social setting. So thus both are societal enforcements. Correct? So it is important. So both are enforced by society. Next, both have no legal backing. Hardly anything has legal backing. Correct? Then supernatural causation. See, this is important. See, while religion hooks upon the Almighty for each and everything, superstition also invokes supernatural causation in order to convince people about the utility of that particular belief or practice, in order to make people believe. So in order to create conviction in the people, so they arouse supernatural causation. That means if a particular belief is not followed, it brings bad luck to you. The Almighty would be angry. Correct? Thus, religion and superstition are also not altogether different. They also coalesce at some point. Then friends, after arguing that religion and superstition can coalesce at some point of time, how does that happen? Why does that happen? So, when would religion turn to be a superstition? The first is change of circumstances. See, that means a particular practice at the time of prescription may be scientific, may be required because of those circumstances. Perhaps even taking the example of sati, maybe that was initially prescribed because it must not have been safe for women to stay single in the society after her husband passed away. So must be in order to safeguard her honor, perhaps that must have been prescribed. But would it continue to be relevant in the present circumstances, in the present democratic society? Absolutely no. So, but when that particular circumstance is removed, if you continue to do that, then perhaps that religion turns circumstances. I mean, I just gave you a vague example, may not be the most appropriate one, but sometimes. So that is the whole idea. So a particular thing is prescribed keeping certain conditions in mind, certain locations in mind. When these conditions and locations change, if the same thing is blindly applied, then religion becomes superstitions. That is second thing. That is first thing. Then the another thing is that religion turned superstition with the addition of practices. So many practices were added to the religion. Why the religious practices were added to the religion? First is for selfish gains. Correct? Some practice is added to the religion by some person because everybody would have to follow that. While following that, he has to, I would indirectly get benefited. Maybe the best example is denial of right to daughters in the ancestral property. Why is that prescribed? Because men folk wanted to appropriate the entire property. So for that selfish gain, that one practice was introduced. So same is the case with dowry. Dowry was introduced as a part of religious practice only because that would help the selfish gains of one particular community, whatever. Then similarly, addition of practices to create a hierarchical social order, whether it is caste or class. One, the society is divided into multiple castes or multiple groups, multiple classes, whatever you may call. So in order to reinforce, in order to endure this particular social order, some practices were prescribed. That means giving alms to a religious leader or calling a particular person to perform a particular religious act. So thus, if the person who upon whom the right and power to perform a particular religious act is conferred, that person and his community became more important, and that community got placed in the higher rung of the social hierarchy. So thus, in order to create that, some practices were introduced. Then institutionalization of religion. So religious institutions started coming up in order to propagate the particular religion. So once the religious institutions are in place, those religious institutions have to sustain. How would they sustain? Only if they get donations, only if they get income. So in this real world, in order to reinforce or continue the institutionalization of religions, certain practices had to be introduced only for the sustenance of those institutions, and that also led to the turning of religion into superstition. Then creating business opportunities. Yes, so many village fairs, many religious fairs in India, if you study deeper, are started in order to give business opportunities to businessmen. Let us say a particular religious fair is organized. That religious fair would bring people of all the followers of that religion to that particular point at that particular time. Once they come there, there is a lot of business opportunity. You can set up shops, you can trade something, make money, etc. That also led to superstition. Then display of extravagance. So many times this religion sacrifices are performed to display one's wealth, to display one's superiority, to display one's pomp, pleasure, exuberance, whatever you may call. So for that also certain practices were introduced. So once these practices are added to the religion, slowly religion turned to be superstitious. After understanding as to when would religion turn superstitious, it is important for us to also understand as to how to rid religion of superstition. The first thing is going back to basics, that is understand the basic tenets of religion. So every person should understand the religion in its purest form. See, whatever religion is being prescribed today has undergone a lot of additions, lot of modifications by many people. But when the religion was originally propounded by the proponents, it is very pure. Thus one has to first understand the religion in its purest form. So in order to rid the religion of superstition. Second, subject all religious practices that are harmful to self or society to scientific scrutiny. Every religion should should take up the mission, should undertake an exercise or activity to subject each of the practices that are being prescribed in the scientific light. It has to be subject to the scientific scrutiny only because at the time of prescription it might be necessary, but it may no longer be necessary in view of the changed circumstances. So thus once every such practice is subjected to scientific scrutiny, then whatever practice passes that test of scientific scrutiny can be continued, and whatever doesn't pass can be safely discarded. Then demonstrating the fallacy of superstitious beliefs, it is very, very, very important. That means this is firmly believed. So only when you demonstrate that this belief is fallacious, then such examples are deeply publicized, deeply disseminated in the community, then only would the community stop following them. So let us say everyone says that when a black cat crosses the path, it is inauspicious. Then there should be somebody who can say that even after black cat crossing the path, then somebody would have definitely ventured ahead, and definitely it would not have brought him misfortune. So such examples are important. Then last thing is, we have to bring science closer to people. We have to provide alternate scientific remedies in order to convince people that superstitious beliefs are fallacious. So for example, earlier what used to happen, whenever even today in many parts, I still remember in Madhya Pradesh recently this made a news once a child becomes sick, rather than taking to doctor, they are taken to some other person with some other superstitious beliefs. Correct? So thus, when will this change? Only when we establish hospitals everywhere, we bring doctor to every village, etc. So only when there are health professionals around, then people have alternate scientific remedy now. Instead of going to some person some quack who indulges in some unscientific practice to rid the child of some disease, you would rather take him to doctor who is qualified. Correct? So only this happens only when doctor is available. So as science spreads, as alternate scientific remedies spread, then superstitions slowly subside. After this elaborate discussion, it is time for conclusion, friends. So from this elaborate discussion, we can safely conclude that whether it is religious practice or a superstitious practice, a person has to develop scientific temper and should accept and follow only those practices which have scientific evidence or which are scientifically correct, or at least continue to follow those beliefs only if they do not harm self and do not harm society. That amount of responsibility and scientific temper is the game changer. So that's how you can conclude. Okay, friends. So thank you. So we'll meet next week with another topic.